Welcome to Martha Runs the World, a podcast with a new take on running, fitness, and all things health-oriented. I'm Martha Hughes, your host, and each week I present a new topic that is of interest to all runners. Hi, and welcome to episode 294 of Martha Runs the World. Thank you so much for joining me. I truly appreciate it. How are you this week? I am doing great. Just moving along. My training is coming along. I am getting ready for my race next month. Oh my gosh. It is September already, isn't it? Okay. Well, we will get there. I know we will. This week, I am talking about two amazing champions in the history of running. It is all about Robert Earl Johnson and Wilma Rudolph. And why is it important to talk about historic champion runners for us regular runners? I think knowing about running history is important for all runners. It doesn't matter if you're a fast runner, elite runner who's at the front of the pack, if you're a mid-pack runner, or if you're like me at the back of the pack. I think it's very important to know and discover how running got us to where we are today. Many runners before us worked very hard to make running as great and popular as it is. And we should know who these runners are and what they did in history and honor them as best as we can. And I can't think of a better way to honor them than to talk about them. I think that does them the justice and the honor, as I'm overusing that word, but that gives them the recognition that they maybe didn't get in their career. Robert Earl Johnson was born March 10th, 1891 in Woodstock, Virginia. He was adopted and raised by Robert P. and Mary T. Johnson in Harrisburg, Virginia. In 1908, he attended Morgan Academy in Lynchburg, Virginia. Later, he transferred to Morgan College Preparatory School in Baltimore and completed his coursework in 1912. He was the captain of the baseball team at Morgan College, and he played football, tennis, and basketball. Now, Johnson did not run a competitive race until he was 24 years old. He first ran at the Baltimore Afro-American Leger Modified Marathon in 1915. 5,000 people witnessed him win the 5-mile race that was run through the city streets. He, of course, was athletic, but he never ran competitively. Earl, now I guess he was called Earl. The website calls him Earl, so he didn't go by his first name. He went by his middle name. Johnson, or Earl as he was called, won his first championship, the Allegheny Mountain AAU Championship in 1919 in the 1-mile race, but was defeated in the 3-mile race. He won the 1920 championship season in the 10-mile race at the Allegheny Mountain AAU over two runners that had recently qualified for the 1920 U.S. Olympic marathon team. He pulled off an upset against heavy favorite Fred Fowler in the 10,000-meter Eastern Olympic tryouts in Philadelphia. And he did also, with that, he qualified for the 1920 Olympic team. He became the first Black American athlete to compete in an Olympic distance running event. Unfortunately, he dropped out of the qualifying heat of the 10,000-meter run. So the 1920 Olympics were very disappointing for him. Now, undeterred by the disappointment of the Olympics, he went gonzo in the 1920 season, and he completed a clean sweep in all distance races by winning AAU titles in cross country, 5 miles and 10 miles. And I'm going to talk about cross country more. I'm going to have a whole episode all about cross country running in the near future. Johnson fended off younger runners while winning the 1924 Olympic qualifier cross-country race at Van Cortlandt Park. And yes, cross-country was part of the Olympics, and part of my episode will be talking about why they should be added back in. winning this race secured his spot in the 1924 U.S. Olympic team. He came in second in the American race, and that qualified him, and then he finished 8th in the 1924 Olympic 10,000 meter race. And he actually got bronze in the cross country event, and the U.S. got the team silver medal in the cross country event. Now, he became a fixture in the Pittsburgh sports scene. After he retired from running, he got involved in for many decades as a sports director, coach, sports writer, and supporter. So locally in Pittsburgh, he was well known, and he mentored Rufus Tankins, who became another distance runner. He coached several teams. He became well known in the area, in the Pittsburgh area, although he kind of dropped out of the scene nationally. He passed away in November in 1965 due to heart failure, bladder cancer, and kidney disease. But unfortunately, he went unrecognized nationally, which is really a shame because he was a true pioneer in distance running for many, many people at the time, especially African Americans. And his lifetime honors, he became a member of the U.S. Distance Running Hall of Fame in 1976. He was named the best Black American distance runner of the last 50 years in the first part of the 20th century. And he's the only American to medal individually in the Olympic cross-country running. Now, he was the first two-time Black American Olympian. He was the first Black American to win Olympic distance running medal, the first to win Black American to win individual Olympic medal in a running non-hurdle race. And he won several U.S. national cross-country championships, several U.S. national 5-mile championships, and several U.S. national 10-mile championships. And I'll talk more about him and about cross-country in a future episode and why it should be part of the Olympics, because it really is a huge part of many nations, not just U.S., but it's a big part of many national sports scenes, and many countries do have cross-country, and I think it would be a great addition. Either the 5K or the 10K edition would be a terrific thing to watch in the Olympics, and I will get in more detail about that in a future episode. Wilma Rudolph. Wilma Rudolph was born in 1940, in June 23rd, 1940. She was an American sprinter who overcame childhood polio and went on to become a world record-holding Olympic champion and later an international sports icon in track and field. Just to briefly talk about her, and I'm going to go into complete detail, but just to briefly talk about her, she competed in the 200-meter dash and won a bronze medal. She won 3 gold medals in 2 different Olympics she was in, and she held the record in a couple different events for many years. She became a coach, she became an educator, she became very well known, she was on the U.S. postage stamp, she became the subject of many documentaries and made for television movies, she went on TV many times, and she was just a huge icon. Wilma Rudolph was born prematurely to Blanche Rudolph at 4.5 pounds on June 23, 1940, in St. Bethlehem, Tennessee, which is now part of Clarksville. She was the 20th of 22 children from her father Ed Rudolph's 2 marriages. 22 children. Shortly after Wilma's birth, her family moved to Clarksville, Tennessee, where she grew up and attended elementary and high school. Her father, Ed, worked as railway porter and did odd jobs in Clarksville, and her mother, Blanche, worked as a maid in Clarksville homes and died in 1994. Rudolph had several early childhood illnesses, including pneumonia and scarlet fever, and she contracted infantile paralysis caused by the polio virus at age 5. Rudolph recovered from polio but lost strength in her left leg and foot. Physically disabled for much of her early life, Rudolph wore a leg brace until she was 12 years old. Because there was little medical care available to African American residents of Clarksville in the 1940s, Rudolph's parents sought treatment for her at the historically black Meharry Medical College, now Nashville General Hospital in Meharry, in Nashville, Tennessee, about 50 miles from Clarksville. For 2 years, Rudolph and her mother made weekly bus trips to Nashville for treatments to regain the use of her weakened leg. Rudolph also received subsequent at-home massage treatments 4 times a day from members of her family and wore an orthopedic shoe for support of her foot for another 2 years. Because of the treatments she received at Meharry and the daily massages from her family members, Rudolph was able to overcome the debilitating effects of polio and learn to walk without a leg brace or orthopedic shoe for support by the time she was 12 years old. So, even though she had such horrible things happen to her when she was young, she also had such support and love from her family, love and dedication, that she was able to overcome. That is so amazing to me. That is so inspirational to me. Rudolph was initially homeschooled due to the frequent illnesses that caused her to miss kindergarten and first grade. She began attending second grade at Cobb Elementary School in Clarksville at age 7. She attended Clarksville all-black Burt High School, where Rudolph excelled at basketball and track. During her senior year of high school, Rudolph became pregnant with her first child, Yolanda, who was born in 1958, a few weeks before her enrollment at Tennessee State University in Nashville. In college, Rudolph continued to compete in track. She also became a member of the Delta Sigma Theta sorority. In 1963, Rudolph graduated from Tennessee State with a bachelor's degree in education. Her college education was paid for her participation in a work-study scholarship program that required Rudolph to work on the TSU campus for 2 hours a day. She's a very hard worker. Dedicated person. Rudolph was first introduced to organized sports at Burt High School, the center of Clarksville's African-American community. After completing several years of medical treatments to regain the use of her leg, Rudolph chose to follow in her sister Yvonne's footsteps and began playing basketball in the 8th grade. Rudolph continued to play basketball in high school, but she also began competing in track. In her sophomore year, Rudolph scored 803 points and set a new record for high school girls basketball. While playing for her high school basketball team, Rudolph was spotted by Ed Temple, Tennessee State's track and field coach, a major break for the active young athlete. The day that Temple saw the 10th grader for the first time, he knew Rudolph was a natural athlete. She also gained some track experience on Burt High School's track team 2 years earlier, mostly as a way to keep busy between basketball seasons. Temple invited 14-year-old Rudolph to join his summer training program at Tennessee State. So as a high school student, she's being invited to be trained by a college coach. That must have been something. That is amazing. After attending the track camp, Rudolph won all 9 events she entered at the Amateur Athletic Union Track Meet in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Under Temple's guidance, she continued to train regularly at TSU while still a high school student. Rudolph raced in amateur athletic events with TSU's women's track team, known as the Tiger Bells, for more than 2 years before enrolling at TSU as a student in 1958. When Rudolph was 16 and a junior in high school, she attended the 1956 U.S. Olympic track and field team trials in Seattle, Washington, and qualified to compete in the 200-meter individual event at the 1956 Summer Olympics in Melbourne, Australia. Rudolph was the youngest member of the U.S. Olympic team. Rudolph was defeated in the preliminary heat of the 200-meter race, but ran the third leg of the 4x100-meter relay. The American team won the bronze medal. The British won the silver, and the Australian team won gold. In 1958, Rudolph enrolled at Tennessee State, where Temple continued as her track coach. At the Pan American Games in Chicago the following year, Rudolph won a silver in the 100-meter individual event, as well as gold in the 4x100-meter relay. and she had fellow TSU teammates along with her. She won the AAU 200-meter title in 1959 and defended it for 4 consecutive years. During her career, Rudolph also won 3 AAU indoor titles. Now, in the 1960 Summer Olympics, and she was a sophomore at Tennessee State, Rudolph competed at the track and field trials at Abilene Christian University in Abilene, Texas. She set a world record in the 200-meter dash that stood for 8 years. And she also qualified for the 1960 Summer Olympics in the 100-meter dash. And the 1960 Olympics were in Rome, Italy. Rudolph competed in 3 events at Rome's Stadio Olimpico, the 100 and 200-meter sprints, as well as the 4x100-meter relay. Rudolph won gold in each of these events, becoming the first American woman to win 3 gold medals in a single Olympiad. Rudolph became the first American woman to win a gold medal in the 100-meter race since Helen Stevens did so in the 1936 Summer Olympics. Rudolph won another gold medal in the finals of the 200-meter dash with 24 seconds. That was her time, after setting a new Olympic record of 23.2 seconds in the opening heat. After these wins, she was hailed throughout the world as the fastest woman in history. Now, on September 7th in 1960, the temperature climbed to 104 degrees as thousands of spectators jammed the stadium. Rudolph, with her Olympic teammates from Tennessee State, Martha Hudson, Lucinda Williams, and Barbara Jones, they went on to win the 4x100-meter relays with a time of 44.5 seconds. After setting the world record of 44.4 seconds in the semifinals, and Rudolph ran the anchor leg for the American team and nearly dropped the baton after a pass from Williams, but she overtook Germany's anchor leg to win the relay at a close finish. And she had a special personal reason to hope for victory, to pay tribute to Jesse Owens, the celebrated American athlete and star of the 1936 Summer Olympics in Berlin, Germany, who had been her inspiration. And I will cover Owens in a future episode. I really like talking about past running stars or past running inspirations or heroes in running, because they mean the world to all of us who run now. Even though we can't be as fast as they can, many of these past historic stars, they had to overcome such adversity or illnesses, or had to overcome something, or poverty, or prejudice because of their race or their sex or something. They had to overcome something. And that's what makes them so inspirational to us, I believe. Rudolph was one of the most popular athletes in the 1960 Rome Olympics and emerged from the Olympic Games as the Tornado, the fastest woman on earth. The Italians nicknamed her La Gazzella Nera, the Black Gazelle. The French called her La Perle Noire, the Black Pearl, as well as La Chattanooga Choo Choo, along with the 1960 Olympic athletes such as Cassius Clay, or better known as Muhammad Ali, Oscar Robertson, and Rafer Johnson. And she became an international star, and because of it, she became known as America's athletic leading lady and a queen. Rudolph's gold medal victories in Rome also propelled her to become one of the most highly visible Black women across the U.S. Because of that, there was a 10-minute documentary film made about her, and she went on to the television show To Tell the Truth and a guest on the Ed Sullivan Show later on. She competed in a few different track events, the U.S.-Soviet meet at Stanford University in 1960, but she retired at age 22. She was still the world record holder in the 100-meter and 200-meter, but as she explained it, she retired at the peak of her athletic career. She said, "If I won 2 gold medals at the 1964 Olympic Games in Tokyo, Japan, there would be something lacking. I'll stick with the glory I've already won, like Jesse Owens did in 1936. After retiring from competition, Rudolph continued her education at Tennessee State and earned a bachelor's degree in elementary education in 1963. That same year, she made a month-long trip to West Africa as a Goodwill ambassador for the U.S. State Department. Rudolph served as U.S. representative to the 1963 Friendship Games in Dakar, Senegal, and visited Ghana, Guinea, Mali, and Upper Volta when she attended sporting events, visited schools, and made guest appearances on television and radio broadcasts. Rudolph also attended the premiere of the U.S. Information Agency's documentary film that highlighted her track career. In May 1963, a few weeks after returning from Africa, Rudolph participated in a civil rights protest in her hometown of Clarksville to desegregate one of the city's restaurants. Within a short time, the mayor announced that the city's public facilities, including its restaurants, would become fully integrated. Now, she did not earn significant money as an amateur athlete and shift to a career in teaching and coaching after her retirement from track competition. She began as a second-grade teacher at Cobb Elementary School, where she had attended as a child, and she coached track at Burt High School, where she had once been a student athlete herself. She also moved around a lot, and she worked for nonprofit organizations and government-sponsored projects that supported athletic development. In Boston, she became involved in the federal Job Corps program, and she served as a track specialist for Operation Champion in 1967. In 1981, Rudolph established and led the Wilma Rudolph Foundation, a nonprofit organization based in Indianapolis, Indiana, that trains youth athletes. 6 years later, she joined the DePaul University at Greencastle, Indiana. She joined DePaul University in Greencastle, Indiana, as director of its women's track program and served as a consultant on minority affairs to the university's president. Rudolph went on to host a local television show in Indianapolis. She was also a publicist for Universal Studios as well as a television sports commentator for ABC Sports during the 1984 Summer Olympics in L.A., California, and lit the cauldron to open the Pan American Games in Indianapolis in 1987 in front of 80,000 spectators at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. In 1992, 2 years before her untimely death, Rudolph became the vice president at Nashville's Baptist Hospital. So she led a very, very full life. She did everything that she could, and she did it on her terms. That's the thing. Rudolph lived her life on her terms, as did Johnson. They did what they needed to do, they did what they had to do, and they lived their lives on their own terms. And I hope they inspired you. I hope that when you go out and run, you think of them and make the best of your run. Even if it's not the greatest run in the world, make it as good as you can. All right? And I am going to go out on my run. I always have Mondays off, and Tuesdays off. And I'm doing this kind of late. Yeah, I don't usually record my shows this late, but I worked all weekend, so I didn't have a chance to record it. So, yeah, I'm a little burned out from working so many hours, but you gotta live, right? All right. Anyway, that is it for this week. The website is martharunstheworld.com, and my email is martharunstheworld@gmail.com. So if you want to email me, you know where to do it. At the website, you can become a Patreon patron, or you can donate just a couple bucks one time if you want. That would be very helpful. It really, really would. And thank you so much for joining me. I truly appreciate it. So let's tie up our shoelaces and go for a run.